Hello and welcome to the Celtic Way Glasgow Derby debrief with myself, Sean Martin, and Tony Haggerty. How's it going, Tony?
All right, Sean, yourself? Could be better.
Could be much better, I think. Might as well not beat about the bush here. Straight in. What did you think of that performance today?
I think the performance was poor in terms of the fact that whilst they kind of dominated possession in the first half, two parts of your team, the middle to front, just didn't function today. And then the back of the pack have conceded a goal from a set piece, which you think they should be able to comfortably deal with. And sadly, that's not been the case. There wasn't going to be much in it, and as it proved, they've been undone by a set piece when you're looking at your central defence to go and clear that. You contrast that with the Rangers central defence who dealt with everything that came their way in terms of set pieces, so it's a bread and butter corner. Just get your big men in to header it away, but sadly, no one's been able to do that.
I think Helander was kind of looking about it at the edge of the area, and no, again, it's the same as similar to the Hearts goal with Suter. You were wondering if it was zonal or if it was man marking. It seemed to be a mix of both. I think Starfelt is the closest to him when he makes connection, but Starfelt, as far as I remember, Starfelt had Goldson. He did have a man, and I think Christie had Morelos. So you're looking at other players there and thinking, who hasn't, one, instructed someone to pick up Helander, and two, not sought the initiative to do it?
I actually thought that Starfelt, up until that point, was having a great game, or not a great game, but he was dealing comfortably with everything that he was asked to do, and as you say, he was the nearest man to him, but I don't know if he was actually picking up Helander, but that's something. There's a big Swedish guy that's lurking at the edge of the box, coming in to try and get his head on it. A good idea to mark him, wouldn't it? But that's it's disappointing in the extreme for Celtic to concede a goal like that and lose the game ultimately.
I think just while we're talking about Starfelt, I also thought he was having quite a good game. Actually, would go as far as to say he was having his best game so far for Celtic.
Yeah, I thought he was
standing up to the kind of the challenger. Roof kind of had a wee bit of smarts about him to try and buy a couple of fouls and suck Starfelt in a few times. But I thought overall he actually played quite well for the most part.
Yeah, I thought he did his best game in a Celtic jersey. But as you say, the highlights and the pictures will show that he was the nearest man to Helander, so he'll cop a bit of stick for that. But whether or not it was his man, then you could argue the toss. But he has to be picked up by somebody, bottom line, and he hasn't, and you've been undone by that, and that's what's led to the winner. So
I think we'll probably look at that in more detail in the next day or two, but I genuinely think there's similarities between that and the Hearts goal. I mean, with the Suter goal, Christie ends up the closest guy to Suter, but it wasn't Christie's man, and it wasn't until you look further back, it was obviously Beaton that had been done on that occasion. I actually agree with you. I don't think anybody was picking up Helander or even really looked to be picking him up. I think that is the overall problem rather than maybe an individual. Maybe you're looking at someone, whether it's the captain or the keeper, to instruct. There's a free guy there. It's not exactly that he's a small guy. He's one of the centre halves. Should be one of the first picked up.
He's hardly inconspicuous, is he, Sean? He's a big guy. But listen, it's happened, and there's nothing they can do with it. But a couple of positives. Anthony Ralston again, terrific, and Juranovic, what a debut that was. Being flung in from the cold. I thought he was particularly good as well. And just the game kind of bypassed Abada and Kyogo a bit. And Odsonne Edwards' chance in the first half, he scores that. It could be a different game, but I don't know what Eddie attempted to do there. It seemed harder to do what he did rather than score.
I think, as much as you just said, I think the game past Kyogo by, I actually thought he was buzzing about like he usually was. The only thing I would have said was his game's not really, I don't think, about taking a man on one-on-one. And in that respect, Balogun and Goldson seemed to deal quite well with him, but his runs were still there. He was making the runs. Sometimes I just don't think the midfielders were getting their heads up to look for the runs. Turnbull in particular, I think he really had quite a poor game today in terms of how one-footed he is. Kind of broke up a few of the attacks that Celtic had going. In general terms, I think that shot from the free kick probably summed up his afternoon. Kind of grasping at straws a wee bit with his performance. Do you think there's an element of Ange maybe could have made the substitutions a wee bit earlier?
I think he possibly could have, because I think it's now plain for everybody to see that Kyogo functions better through the middle. And Celtic created their best chances of the game with Kyogo through the middle, didn't they? Apart from obviously Edwards, which Kyogo created, which is one of the few times he actually got past his man and down the line and put the ball across. I think most Celtic supporters would concede, and surely Ange has to concede, that Kyogo functions better down the middle. Poor choice for the one he cracked off McCrory's foot. Thought he should have squared it to Ryan Christie, who's got a tap in and is screaming at the back post. I get that all strikers will want to have a go in that situation. I don't blame him per se, but if he looks up, he can play his teammate in for a tap in at the back post. And then the one that he got 2 minutes later, he then squares it, when maybe he would have been better having an effort on goal. So it's one of them, and as I say, just that's the thing that in Glasgow derby matches, these are the things that differentiate between winning and losing, or drawing in that case if Celtic were chasing a goal. But you have to be clinical in those situations, and Celtic had 2 or 3 situations where if they were clinical then they would have scored, but they didn't.
I think so. I think on the 2 kind of Kyogo moments you were talking about there, the shot in and of itself was a fair enough shot. McCrory had to pull off a good save, but I agree that it was almost the inverse. The first shot, he should have squared it. The second time when he squared it, he should have shot. And it is those fine margins. Actually, although obviously it never paid off, it was actually good work from Sorrow to play him through for the second one as well. He actually done all right when he came on, Sorrow. I wouldn't say a critic, but I'm kind of dubious as to how well he'll fit in that system. I thought he'd done all right when he came on. If you're wanting, you've already mentioned Juranovic's debut. You're obviously really impressed with him. I thought he was decent. I didn't think it was great. I thought he was good considering it was his debut. And he was playing left back. I thought he had more than a few slack passes, but I think on the conversely, I think it was a good few times his composure actually got them out of danger as well. Obviously, ideally, he's not going to be playing in the left. I think that did slow the attack down a few times when he had to come back, chop back onto his right foot. I think overall it was a decent debut, though, considering it was his debut, considering it was a derby, and considering he was on the left-hand side.
I think if you're thrown into an unaccustomed role and you're flung in for your first Celtic game against Rangers at Ibrox, and you equip yourself well, I think I thought he did terrifically well, to be honest, and I get that you will make slack passes. I'm allowing for nails, but I really did. I thought he did very well, and there wasn't much that came down Juranovic's side that caused Celtic problems, and I allowed for the odd slack pass, but I still maintain that I just don't think this defence is comfortable playing it out the back. Thought Welsh on occasion looked ill at ease with it, and just the whole kind of, when Rangers did the high pressing stuff and they were backing Celtic into areas of the pitch that they just didn't want to be in, you just say to yourself, well, we maybe have to shake it and mix it up a bit at times because teams know that that's what we're going to do. And I get that, and he's going to stick by that, but he needs the personnel in that are comfortable to do that, and it becomes second nature. So again, there's now up to Celtic the next couple of days in the window to get more players in. I think the focus will now switch to that. So it's a bitter disappointment for Angela, and another early setback. That's 2 out of the first 4 league games being lost.
Yep. I thought they did okay trying to play out from the back. I thought Hart went long when he felt he had to go long, and even when he did go long, I thought his long passes seemed fairly accurate. You were talking about Juranovic on the left, Ralston on the right. I thought had another really good game. I thought again they obviously weren't playing that wing centric role, if you know what I mean. So a lot of it didn't come down the wings the way that it might have done if Tavernier was playing as well on the opposite side. But when he had to deal with Barisic and Kent, sometimes he had to deal with the two of them at the same time. I thought Ralston stood up to both really, really well.
Oh yeah, I thought Ralston and Juranovic were Celtic's best players today. By a distance. And Ralston stood up to Roof, Kent, and Morelos, whoever came across. And he did extremely well. And the guy's just in a purple patch at the minute, and everything he's doing it right. So you cannot fault Ralston at this minute in time. And fair play to him, well done. You know, he's came through that test today, in particular with flying colours. You know, and he's impressed again.
In terms of the way that Celtic played, how much of that do you think is down to the fact that maybe Kyogo should have started through the middle rather than Edouard? We've got a comment here saying that the best game Celtic have played so far have been with Kyogo down the middle. Do you think that's got much merit? Do you think that Ange maybe got that wrong, playing Kyogo off the left from the start instead of through the middle?
Well, Ange was very much of the opinion at the start of the season, saying that whatever happens, and if they lose games, it's on him. So I'll be interested to see if he says that this is on him. You know, it's on me. You know, by saying that he called it wrong. You know, Kyogo has played through the middle and he's been pretty devastating. Goal scoring form every time he's played through the middle. You know, you can see what he tried by playing Edouard up top beside him. I think they wanted to just get him support as well, but it wasn't working, was it? Up until Edouard missed that sitter, which was about half an hour in, wasn't it? I think.
Mm-hmm.
I can't exactly remember, but I mean, Celtic hadn't created anything, and that was supposedly not a rookie goalkeeper, but a goalkeeper with not many Rangers games under his belt, and they hardly tested him at all, did they?
Well, I've got it noted down. The 68th minute is the first time I noted down that they actually tested him in some way.
Yeah, so that
68 minutes,
on, doesn't it?
I think
you've
it does.
got a goalkeeper like that, you have to test them, you know, and I think if a part of your team is functioning with Kyogo down the middle, then he has to be played through the middle, you know, because he can be ineffective out wide, and not because he can't play or he's not talented. He's got all the talent in the world, but he can make runs out wide and people just fail to spot him. You know, you spoke off camera before we come on and you said a couple of times if Callum McGregor had got his head up, he would have spotted Kyogo's runs. But if that's the case, then surely you just hit it into that area, knowing that he'll be there, you know, and I think if you're going to hit it into areas, he's effective going through the middle. And if you're going through the middle, then defenders have to take care of him. And, you know, we've seen already that he's a finisher. So, you know, maybe the manager might admit that he called it wrong, but, you know, they were disappointing from middle to front. They were disappointing, and they've been undone by a set piece from a defence who played okay today. You know, there wasn't much in the game, to be fair, you know, so
I think, to be honest, in the first half, I thought Celtic, even though Ryan Kent hit the post, I thought Celtic were the better team without, obviously, as we spoke about, actually posing a danger to Robbie McCrory. The exception being when Kyogo pulled it across for Edouard, as we say, he kind of got his foot wrong and kind of tried to side foot it, but it hit off his heel and different things. Like these things happen. That was the only time I can really remember in the first half Celtic looking like they would worry McCrory, but in general terms, I thought Celtic were the better team in the first half. I actually thought McGregor had a good first half. I just thought, I noticed a couple of times, same with Turnbull as well, that there were times where Kyogo, as he always is, was buzzing about, even though he was playing wide left, ready to make a run, sometimes making the run, but nobody really wanted to make that risky pass, if you know what I mean, to try and find him. Christie tried it a couple of times, didn't come off. Maybe that impacted other people taking the risk as well, I don't know. But what I would say about Kyogo, even when he is wide left, and obviously this wasn't one of his better games, he doesn't hide, and I think he kind of his general style of play, he looks to do things that make defensive players make a decision, if you know what I mean. Whether it's a cross or a pass, he will take the risk and he will play it to try and make the defence make a decision one way or the other, rather than playing it safe and playing it back all the time. And I think that's to his credit, even though he wasn't having a good game.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's you know, we didn't lose just because Kyogo was off the boil per se. You know, we lost because we didn't create enough. You know, had they created the way they've been creating in the past few matches, then they would have scored, but they didn't. 68 minutes to test a fairly relatively unknown goalkeeper in Robbie McCrory in terms of his Rangers appearances is, you know, tells its own story. You know, and I think worryingly for Celtic moving forward is that's the 6th league game in a spin. Well, they've not won. Rangers have won 5 and drawn 1, I believe. You know, the last win that Celtic had was the League Cup final, December 2019, and the last win in the league was Ibrox, September 2019, when Odsonne Edouard and Johnny Hayes scored. So that's something they'll need to address before it becomes some kind of, mental block if it isn't becoming a mental block already, And
no, I think that's got value. I definitely think that's got value. I think in the inverse it has value, because you saw for years there in the League Cup finals probably the best evidence of it.
Yeah.
The Rangers had that psychological barrier, and no matter how well they seem to play, that League Cup final is as magnificent a performance as it was from Fraser Forster. Rangers should have won that final. Part of that has to come down to the psychological barrier that they clearly had about playing Celtic.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously it led to them reducing capacity and stuff for away fans, that kind of thing. Like it does have value, that kind of thing, especially in a derby match, I'm sure.
Yeah. And and it's going to have to be addressed very quickly, and I get that Celtic are a work in progress under Ange. I get all that, but there was a lot of misplaced confidence going to Ibrox today among the Celtic supporters, who were talking about Celtic scoring 4 and 5, 3, 4 and 5 goals.
I'm one of them. I predicted 4-2 Celtic. I think we'll remember from Friday.
But that's
an early goal today, and I think it's fine margins, as you say yourself. I do think the complexion of the game changes if Celtic take that chance in the first half. Not saying they would have went on to score 4, but they certainly had enough chances even with that to score a couple.
So you were always going to be up against it today in terms of a tough test. To go to Ibrox with 50,000 Rangers supporters there, and none of the away fans in, and you've got to, it's a challenge that the players have to rise to, and some did, 2 or 3 did, but not enough did, and ultimately they've come away with nothing. But you have to learn, and moving forward, and Ange will take it in the chin, as they say, and hopefully learn moving forward, but it's just Celtic didn't get any kind of fluency or rhythm going today, did they? They were comfortable in possession in the first half, but they never really threatened Rangers or put it in where it hurt, in the final.
I mean, they certainly weren't peppering the goal or anything like that. I just thought in general terms they were in the first half, maybe not so much the second half, because Rangers came out after half time and looked as if they wanted to make a better game of it. I thought the first half Celtic were the better team, and I thought they did pass it fairly well without penetrating, and I suppose that is the key. If you're not passing it without penetrating, as Ange says, passing it with a purpose, then there isn't much point really. But I still thought they played okay. Another thing I wanted to ask,
creative spark, Sean,
Go on. Yeah, aye. I mean, not to focus too much on it, but I did think the referee did a pretty poor game today. Not that it was an influentially poor game necessarily, but I do think it's worth mentioning. I thought he had a pretty poor game, making decisions fairly regularly wrongly. Not you might say that's the same as most referees, but I did think that today. I thought he was regularly, him and his assistants, getting quite a few decisions wrong. Not that there was the game changers, but
there was the kind of penalty instant which was highlighted, but I don't think that's a penalty because he's got his back to the play, hasn't he? It's hit his elbow, but it's in that area of handball, isn't it?
It's an odd one because it does hit his elbow, which is a handball, but you're right, he was kind of spinning about, kind of looking to see where Kyogo was, but at the same time, the only thing, to play devil's advocate here, the only thing I can think, like, maybe to say it could have been a penalty is the fact that it literally stops Kyogo having a goal scoring opportunity.
Yes.
But he didn't really seem to consider it. He didn't even seem to consider it at all. So I suppose we'd need to look at it again. But I could see it from Kyogo's perspective. He definitely thought this has stopped me going through.
Yeah.
But I suppose I think it was Balogun, was it? From Balogun's perspective, I mean, he didn't know where he was. I don't think he was spinning around.
And I think he gave him the benefit of the doubt on that one, But again, it's a big call, but the referee was fairly certain that it wasn't. There was no kind of, I don't know if there was. I think Kyogo claimed for it, didn't he?
He definitely did. He definitely.
But I don't think there was many other Celtic players that claimed for it, and it's one of them. It could have been given, but I can see why it wasn't, because I think he's given the defender the benefit of the doubt because he said he's back to the play and he's turning, but it's still a handball. He still hits his elbow. As you say, it prevents Kyogo from having a goal scoring opportunity. So somewhere in between those explanations lies the truth, doesn't it?
I think. We spoke about Ralston, but I think what also what stuck out to me about his performance was even near the end. when okay, they had the couple of shots with we've talked about with Kyogo and Christie, they could have squared it and stuff, but with Ralston, there was a kind of lull from Celtic in general where it seemed as if they were almost kind of just passing it about to kind of see out the game at 1-0, even though they weren't really putting much pressure on. And I thought Ralston in particular was frustrated by that, and you could see that he was trying to urge them forward, and then in the opposite direction, Abada and Rogic kind of drew his ire a couple of times for not pressing and not helping him out coming back. And we've already said he had to deal with sometimes more than one player himself. And I think it was about the 83rd, 84th minute, just before the Kyogo chances. Ralston's frustration to me was palpable. The fact that Rogic and Abada in particular weren't coming across and trying to help
him out. Yeah, I mean, Ralston.
I think that maybe spoke to the kind of the performance in general today. Do you think?
I think Ralston covered himself in glory today. Juranovic did as well. I'm struggling to see many others who did. You know, but those were the two that caught my eye. You know, and Ralston, as I say, he just seems like a completely and utterly transformed player. And it didn't matter who he was marking today, Roof, Kent or Morelos, because he decided none of them were getting the better of him. And there was a couple of times in the first half where he showed Kent down the outside, you know, didn't dive in. You know, Kent was...
That when he ran out the pitch with?
Yeah, and he ran it and he made Kent run out the park, and he did it a couple of times, and he, you know, shepherded Morelos well too, and Roof at one point too, and Roof's quite a tough character, you know, a big physical presence, and Anthony Ralston was like, nope, and you're not going to get me to give anything stupid away. He just stuck to the task at hand, and you know, and he's one of the few Celtic players that didn't deserve to be in the losing side, you know, and he's stepped up to the plate in the last few weeks, and I've been quite a vocal critic of Ralston as well, so I have to give praise where it's due. And I thought Juranovic on the other side was just as effective as well. You know, you said he gave the ball away a couple of times, but I expect that because you've just been flung in, and what a game to make your first Celtic appearance. But I thought he looked composed and assured and going forward, and he was, bearing in mind he's a right back normally, isn't he? So he was playing in a position that was on a course because he kept checking into his right foot, didn't he? You know, so
I think there's definitely allowances for the Juranovic. Don't want to overstate it or anything. I just thought I wouldn't have said it was like a man of the match kind of display or anything. But I thought it's mostly. Oh, that wasn't me. I thought because he was kind of a couple of slack passes it simply was a couple of slack passes, and I thought overall, given that it was his debut and given that he was playing on the kind of so-called wrong side, I thought it was a decent display. His composure certainly bodes well. I would say that much.
Yeah,
because I did a few times where, especially when Rangers kind of started having a bit of the bit between their teeth, and I don't know, it was kind of down at his position, so the wide right channel for them, and the ball was up there, and he managed to take it down and win the throw in, and I thought that was composure, pure and simple. I don't necessarily think a lot of the players would have done that in that moment, so I think that bodes well.
There was one he took down in particular, another one you're talking about, who plucked it out of the air with a superb touch. You know, I think even Alan McCoy in the commentary box was like, wow, you know, he was wowed by that, you know, so he took a crack and he was really composed, and I remember that. But, you know, I think Celtic just need to lick their wounds now, Sean, and just say, okay, you know, that it's happened, you know, can't do anything about it. Just make sure that when the next Glasgow derby comes across, that they're bang at it. They just weren't bang at it the same way they were bang at it against Hearts and Dundee, you know, and St Mirren. You know, you have to say that. You know, so it's, you know, they came through a tough test against Alkmaar the other night by virtue of scoring a goal, an important goal. Didn't score today, and they've lost. So, you know, it's going to be one of those seasons for Celtic. You know, there'll be highs and lows, and this is you know, with the losing in the Champions League apart, this is the first kind of real low. I know they lost to Hearts in the opening day of the season, but they were still kind of building then, so they'd built some momentum going into the Rangers game, you know, and qualifying for the Europa League group stages. So that momentum's been kind of halted now, you know. So you just kind of you lick your wounds during the international week and just, you know, regroup and press the reset button and go again, because it's all you can do.
I think so. Last on that, you said international break there. On that note, do you think there's only 2 days left to get players in and also players to leave. Do you think that is how Odsonne Edwards signed off his Celtic career?
I think so. I think the Celtic fans just were really frustrated by Odsonne Edouard today. Mm-hmm. It was the kind of Odsonne Edouard of the past 18 months, and he's been a fine servant for Celtic and given them some gloriously high moments, but he's also frustrated the life out of supporters. And today was a case in point. For the life of me, I still don't know what he's thinking when he side foots that ball, because it's not even anywhere near the goal. He just doesn't adjust his feet or open his body out. And
to give him the benefit of the doubt, I think he was trying to open his foot to side foot it, and he just got the timing wrong and it hit off his heel rather than his instep. I think I realise that is the finest of margins. You've got to get it right in that situation, but to give him a benefit of the doubt, I think in that scenario, I think that is what happened.
But in derby matches, they go down as gilt-edged opportunities, don't they? Which you have to take. So. But if he's signed off like that, he's signed off on a low note. But I think a lot of Celtic supporters would do well to remember the high points that he's given them, and there's a talented footballer there. But I just think the kind of it's time for a mutual parting of the ways with Edouard, and I think if Celtic can bring in Giakoumakis, the Greek striker, then they'll have done well on that. And, led to believe that a fee's been agreed and he wants to come, and maybe that's something that you'll see moving forward in the next couple of days coming to fruition. But I think if anything, you still need defenders, Sean. You still need a central defender, I think. In my opinion, a kind of domineering centre back, centre half. Just to go and win the ball in the air in those situations, and where there's no danger at all, you just deal with it.
I do think that was organisation as much as personnel. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. You never know. He might have scored anyway. But the fact that it was a free header suggests. I mean, as I say, I think Starfelt had Goldson. So. I do think there wasn't necessarily just by a centre half that's a wee bit better than there, and we stopped that goal. I think the organisation of the defence in that situation is as important as the personnel that are there, but. Overall, it's all one saying. I heard John Hartson saying this the other night as well. Stephen Wilster just headed it back where it came from, the first goal at AZ game. Realistically, that's all well and good if you can also take the ball down and play with it, because that is first and foremost what he's wanting them to do as well. So I think there's definitely a point that they do need someone who's more confident with the physical aspects. Starfelt might be that guy, because he actually seemed to relish having Morelos and Roof there, but. They've got to be able to play the ball with their feet as well, or it's not really going to work and they'll get exposed in different ways.
And also as well, the last 3 goals they've conceded have been self-inflicted. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. There've been mistakes, as you say, failure to pick up today. How can you fail to pick up a big Swedish guy looking at the edge of the box with intent to score a goal from a corner with a header? These are, as you say, that might be organisational things, but just... if you've got somebody commanding there, they just deal with a cross anyway, with a high ball, and I just think that, and then obviously the goal the other night with Welsh getting a brush on it or whatever, possibly dealt with it better, and then Starfelt's OG. But I like you, I felt Starfelt was having his best game in a Celtic jersey, and he was coping up until that point, but after that, it kind of threw everybody, didn't it, for a wee bit, even though he didn't really look like losing another per se. But it's been the difference in the match. A bread and butter corner kick and the big guy coming up from the back and planting a header in your net. When you break it down like that, that'll be hard for the manager to take, especially when other defenders are actually playing well and have coped during this, more or less during the whole match.
Mm-hmm. Okay, though. I think we've done it to death now. I think we'll call it there for today. But I'm sure we'll be back again tomorrow if you want to tune in for the briefing in the morning, and hear his moan more probably. For now, thanks for joining me, Tony.
Pleasure, Sean.
Cheers.